Right, this is the latest movie review for you, YouTube, now. Okay, the latest film I got to see was Brooklyn's Finest. I don't know who directed this film or whatever, but this stars Ethan Hawke and Don Cheadle. First of all, as you can tell, I've got a little bit of a cold, but I still saw this film recently, so I wanted to review it for you guys. Okay, let's get into this review. Now, Brooklyn's Finest, of course, stars Ethan Hawke, Don Cheadle, Wesley Snipes, and a few other actors who I don't know. Anyway, the plot of the movie now, this is pretty complicated to explain because from what I got at the film there wasn't much of a plot, but here it goes. Three separate stories involving a few characters. It's all relating to like stopping drug lords or in some cases carrying on the drug legacy and how it all comes together at the end for a somewhat exciting climax. So that's the plot. Well, it was a terrible plot synopsis probably, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm wasting time. So, Brooklyn's Finest. Now, this film, from what I looked of it on the posters, and I think I might have seen a trailer for it, it actually looked pretty interesting. I thought it could be a good conspiracy thriller, or it could have been an action thriller, which I must admit is my personal favourite type of movie. So I didn't quite know what to expect going into it. I knew it was about 2 hours long, but I was hoping that it would actually be living up to my expectations, pretty much. So, did it? Sadly, no. It did not whatsoever live up to my expectations. Is it a terrible film? You'll find that out. So there's pros, and of course there's pros and cons to the film like there is to many others. Pros about Brooklyn's Finest. Now, the acting is pretty good here. Ethan Hawke. Now, the only other film I've seen him in other than this is Daybreakers. And as much as I love Daybreakers, this is nowhere near close enough in the quality that Daybreakers suggested. Sorry about that, moving with the camera. Daybreakers, I thought, like I say, it really made up for Twilight New Moon. Please hope, now not going off topic too much, but please hope Eclipse is good. And PGW, Dakota Fanning, please do something in the third film and not just stand around like a complete pussy like all of Volturi were in the second. That's beside the point. Daybreakers was brilliant, and unfortunately, this isn't. Ethan Hawke has good acting, I will admit. His acting in this film is pretty good when he's not swearing every 5 minutes. So, but generally I was impressed with his performance overall. Same with Don Cheadle. Now, the only film, of course, I've seen him in the Oceans films, whichever he was in, and Iron Man 2, both of which I really liked, and in Iron Man 2's case, loved. So, I really thought that Don Cheadle would, for me, be the star. Him and Ethan Hawke, I thought it could be like a cop force or something. I would have loved it if they. See, the thing is, the potential that I'll get into that later actually. But Don Cheadle, for most part, what he worked with, I thought was pretty good. Wesley Snipes hardly, I think, made much of an appearance in the movie, from what I could tell, although I couldn't really recognise him. And that's because I haven't seen any of his films. Yes, I know I've not seen Blade, so kill me right now. Reference. But for the most part, the acting is pretty solid, even though most of it is, excuse me for saying this, fuck this, fuck that, dude, twat. Excuse my language, didn't hear that from me. So I apologise if I've offended anyone who doesn't like me swearing on the front of the camera. Anyway, so moving on from that. The visuals are pretty stellar here. They have good. Then it's certainly not afraid to spill some blood, this movie, I will admit. It is certainly not afraid to have a bit of bloodshed every now and again. The film is pretty graphic. But to be honest, put it this way, I thought Watchmen was going to be graphic, and it wasn't as graphic as I was expecting. Same with Inglourious Bastards, and the same with this film. You know, sometimes when they're rated 18 for a reason, and then when I watch it, I think, well, you could have just got away with a 15 for that. But never mind. But the graphic violence is pretty violent, I will say, and particularly the ending for the climax, it really just come well together. Unfortunately, right, one last thing, a couple of other things. I liked the way the way the movie was going in terms of its tone and spirit. I liked that it kept a dark and twisted edge to it throughout the whole film, and I thought that really worked well for the concept that it was trying to deliver across to its audience. And the one last thing I liked, now, actually, to be honest, that's really all I liked about Brooklyn's Finest. Now let's get into the bad stuff. Okay, the script in this movie isn't very good. The story itself has two issues. One scenario, it's boring, but you can get what's going on. Another, it's interesting, but you're confused as shit. So, the script, for me, seriously could have done with reworking. They could have reworked or rewired the script and made it so that you can understand what's going on, but it's also interesting and has a few twists along the way. And it's such a shame that this movie could have had so much more potential than it did. Unfortunately, what it ended up doing, 3 completely irrelevant story characters, Ethan Hawke, Don Cheadle, and the other main character, who I don't know his name, but they all come together in a big location at the end, and they don't intertwine. None of them intertwine at all. So I'm afraid to say that Brooklyn's Finest wasted characters in some respects. So that was my problem, the wastage of the characters that just didn't go anywhere. And for me, it just fell flat. I would have loved it if Ethan Hawke and Don Cheadle came together as a sort of a bittersweet partnership. And I thought that would have been so brilliant. And that was the potential it had. But it didn't do it. Another thing that I didn't like about the Brooklyn's Finest was that it was way too long. The running time could have much easily been cut down for it. And I thought that it overstretched itself. After watching the film for about half an hour, I was already getting bored. And I could sense, like Mr. Black did with Spider-Man 3, was that the movie starts out slow and it eventually builds to the huge ending climax. Sorry. But that was just me having to get it out. Wasn't trying to be rude. But I will admit, I just think that the film itself just stretched on far too long. It didn't cut half an hour of the film, and yeah, it might have been better. And the ending itself, I'll admit, was overstretched as well. It didn't, after, I'm not going to give away who does, but two of the 3 characters I mentioned die, and I'm not going to tell you who they are. But once they do, it stretches on with the 3rd character, and it just, this review of course will be a spoiler, so I might click spoilers in the title, but it just didn't work for me. It just didn't do it, and the ending was too long. Could have easily been cut down, and you could have cut the film by half an hour and it wouldn't have made a difference. Now, it may sound like I hated Brooklyn's Finest, but thankfully I didn't. There was enough enjoyable material for it to be a so-so film. It isn't good by any means, but it's also by any means not terrible. And unlike Twilight, New Moon, Farm and Summer, this does actually have elements that are interesting about it. But unfortunately, all the mistakes that were made prevented me from truly enjoying Brooklyn's Finest. So to sum things up, Brooklyn's Finest is an average bag of mixed goods. Some people might really like it and think it's an intelligent thriller, whereas others will hate it for its lack of interesting plot threads, irrelevant storylines, and an overall disappointing film. But it isn't terrible though. So 2.5 stars out of 5, I think, is the grade earned for Brooklyn's Finest. So definitely I wouldn't advise you go and see it in a hurry. Just get it on DVD or rent it. So there you have it. And this film was rated 18, and the violence was kept to a minimum here. So I think the BBFC are just a bunch of babies nowadays when it comes to rating films. Anyway, 2.5 stars, Brooklyn's Finest. So until next time, YouTube, and hopefully my cold will get better by then, I shall sign out now. Thank you for watching.